If you walk onto a modern NATO firing range today, past the drones, the thermal optics, and the $100,000 sniper rifles, you will hear a sound that shouldn't exist in the 21st century. It is a deep, mechanical rip, a sound like canvas being torn apart at Mach 1. It is the signature of the MG-3. To the uninitiated, it looks like a relic of the Second World War. To the military engineer, it is the most successful glitch in the history of ballistics. The story of the MG-3 is the story of a design so perfect that it turned time into a circle. By 1945, the Allied powers thought they had buried Hitler's Buzzsaw, the MG-42, in the ruins of Berlin. They spent the Cold War pouring billions into research and development, desperate to create a machine gun that could match the legendary German rate of fire without the legendary German complexity. The Americans built the M60, the British built the L7, but the newly formed West German military did something much simpler and much more terrifying. They realized that in 1942 they had unintentionally discovered a peak engineering point. The MG-42 wasn't just a gun, it was a physical manifestation of a mathematical law. Its roller-locked short recoil system allowed it to cycle ammunition faster than the human eye could track. So instead of designing a modern successor, they simply performed a heart transplant. They took the 1942 chassis, adapted it to the 7.62 NATO cartridge, and renamed it the MG-3. This isn't just a case of if it isn't broke, don't fix it. This is a case of a weapon that is fundamentally broken in favor of the user. Most machine guns are a compromise between weight, reliability, and speed. The MG-3 refuses to compromise. While a standard US M240 machine gun chugs along at a respectable 650 rounds per minute, the MG-3 screams at 1,200. This creates a phenomenon known as linear suppression. In a 1940s trench or a 2026 urban conflict zone, the physics remain the same. If you can put twice as much lead into a doorway as your opponent in the same 1-second window, you have a 100% tactical advantage. But the MG-3's dominance isn't just about speed, it's about the genetic perfection of its barrel change system. In a high-intensity conflict, heat is the enemy of all automatic weapons. Most modern guns require a soldier to wear heavy asbestos gloves or manipulate complex latches to swap a melting barrel. The MG-3 uses a 1942 side-swing hatch that allows an experienced gunner to swap a glowing red barrel for a cold one in under 3 seconds. It is a mechanical ballet that allows the Buzzsaw to maintain a near-infinite stream of fire. As we look at the modern battlefield today, from the forests of Eastern Europe to the deserts of the Middle East, the silhouette of the MG-3 is everywhere. It is mounted on the most advanced main battle tanks in existence, not because it's cheap, but because it is the only weapon that provides the sheer volume of violence required to survive a modern ambush. It is the ultimate paradox of military history, a weapon born in the darkest era of the 20th century, which has outlived every high-tech replacement the 21st century has thrown at it. The MG-42 didn't lose the war because of its design. It lost because it ran out of country to defend. Now, as the MG-3, that design has conquered the world. It is the immortal machine, a steel ghost, that proves that once you've perfected the art of the shred, there is no reason to ever change the blade.
To understand why the MG-3 still haunts the modern battlefield, you have to look past the steel and wood and look at the physics of a mechanical anomaly. In the world of firearms, there is a concept called the golden triangle. It is the balance between reliability, weight, and rate of fire. Usually, if you increase one, you sacrifice the others. But the MG-3 is a design that managed to glitch the triangle. It provides the highest rate of fire in its class while maintaining a level of reliability that borders on the supernatural. During the height of the Cold War, the United States military looked at the German Buzzsaw and tried to copy its homework. They wanted that 1,200 round per minute terror for their own troops. The result was the M60 machine gun. But there was a problem. The American engineers tried to refine the German design, adding new gas systems and different feeding mechanisms. In their attempt to make it better, they broke the magic. The M60 became known as the Pig. It was heavy, it jammed in the mud of Vietnam, and it could never reach the terrifying cycle rate of its German ancestor. The MG-3, however, never had these modern problems because it never left the original 1942 blueprint. The glitch lies in the roller-locked short recoil system. Most modern machine guns, like the American M240 or the Russian PKM, use a gas-operated system. This means they bleed off gas from the barrel to push a piston that cycles the gun. It's a smart system, but it's slow. The MG-3 doesn't wait for gas. It uses the physical recoil of the barrel itself to unlock the bolt. This makes the action incredibly violent and incredibly fast. It is a pure mechanical cycle that doesn't care about carbon buildup or gas pressure. It just moves. This brings us to the most controversial part of the MG-3's design, the NATO math. Modern military doctrine usually teaches that accuracy is king. They argue that a slower-firing gun is easier to aim and saves ammunition. But the MG-3 was designed for a different kind of math, the math of suppression. On a modern battlefield, you aren't always shooting at a visible target. You are shooting at a zone. When an MG-3 gunner pulls the trigger, they aren't firing bullets, they are firing a wall of lead. At 1,200 rounds per minute, the gap between each bullet is only 0.05 seconds. This creates a vacuum of movement for the enemy. If a soldier tries to move between shots against a standard machine gun, they might have a window of opportunity. Against an MG-3, that window doesn't exist. The air is physically occupied by lead. It is a tactical area denial tool that makes it impossible for the enemy to even lift their head, let alone return fire. But a gun that fires that fast should melt, right? That is where the second part of the glitch comes in, the 3-second resurrection. In a high-intensity firefight, a machine gun barrel will reach temperatures of over 500 degrees Celsius in less than a minute. For most guns, this is a disaster. You have to wait or use tools to swap the barrel. But the MG-3 features a side-loading barrel hatch that is a masterclass in ergonomics. A gunner simply kicks the hatch open, tilts the gun, and the red-hot barrel slides out. A new one slides in, the hatch snaps shut, and the buzzsaw is back online. This mechanical loophole, the ability to maintain a 1,200 RPM fire rate indefinitely, is why the MG-3 is still the primary weapon of the Leopard 2 tank and the Panzerhaubitze 2000. It provides a bubble of protection that no other weapon can replicate. Other countries have tried to replace it with lighter, slower, smarter guns, but every time the shooting starts, they realize the same thing the Germans realized in 1942. In a world of chaos, the only thing that matters is how much lead you can put in the air before the other guy can blink. The MG-3 isn't a relic, it's a perfected law of physics that the rest of the world is still trying to catch up to.
If you look at the front lines of the most brutal conflicts of the 2026 era, you will see a strange anomaly. Amidst the high-tech drones, the satellite-linked artillery, and the AI-driven surveillance systems, there is a silhouette that remains unchanged since the fall of Berlin. From the frozen trenches of Eastern Europe to the sun-scorched mountains of the Middle East, The MG-3 isn't just a weapon, it is the world's most successful military virus. It has infected over 40 national armies, and despite every attempt to replace it with something smarter, it refuses to die. The reason for this global empire is simple. Modern warfare is getting closer, not further away. While politicians talk about long-range missiles, the soldier on the ground knows that the most dangerous moment of their life will happen within 200 meters. In that kill zone, you don't want a delicate computer-controlled rifle. You want the Buzzsaw. The MG-3 has become the ultimate insurance policy for the world's elite forces. When a Leopard 2 tank, the pride of NATO, enters a combat zone, its primary defense against infantry isn't its massive 120mm cannon, it's the 1942-designed MG-3 mounted on the roof. It is the only gun trusted to create a 360-degree no-go zone in a split second. But the MG-3's legacy is now being written in the most intense combat seen since World War II. In the current war in Ukraine, the MG-3 has been pulled from deep storage in Germany, Italy, and Turkey and sent to the front. The footage coming out of these trenches is a terrifying echo of history. We see modern soldiers wearing digital camouflage and night vision goggles, operating the same slam-fire feedback loop that their grandfathers feared in 1944. It turns out that the Buzzsaw doesn't care about the century. It only cares about the physics of suppression. In a world of drones, the MG-3 is the only thing that can shred a swarm out of the sky before the operator can even react. We are witnessing the birth of a weapon of infinity. Most military hardware has a shelf life of 20 years before it becomes a museum piece. The MG-3 is approaching its 100th anniversary on the front line. It has outlived the Soviet Union, it has outlived the M60, and it is currently outlasting the very engineers who tried to replace it. It is the ghost in the machine. A piece of steel that was so well engineered the first time that any attempt to improve it is actually a downgrade. As we look toward the future of the modern battlefield, the MG-3 stands as a warning. It reminds us that in the chaos of war, high tech is a luxury, but reliable violence is a necessity. The MG-3 isn't just a machine gun, it is the gold standard of lethality. It is the illegal weapon that became the global law. It is the 1942 nightmare that became the 2026 reality. And as long as soldiers have to fight in the mud and the dark, the sound of the Buzzsaw will be the last thing their enemies ever hear. The king isn't dead. The king is just getting started.